think so. I think it's just consulting work and you charge well for it. Except that the consulting was to groups that mentioned that, you know,
invite anybody else
there's a way of money they can I don't think all of it has come out yet.
How big a thing is it?
For example, so you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. One day it's going up.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tickets.
Good morning. By the striking of the clock, it is 9 a.m. on February 8th, 2012, and this meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board is now in session. Ms. Rowe, any public comments?
No public comments.
Item 3, adoption of the minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of January 25th, just a few weeks ago, 2012. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any additions or changes, deletions? If not, all those, if there's a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Item 4, update and presentation from the America's Gateway Builders on Loop 375 at I-10 America's Interchange Project.
Morning, Chairman McLaughlin, board members, Mr. Tess. My name is Willie Kramer. I'm the project manager for America Gateway Builders. And we want to start the presentation this morning. We have a fly-through video of the project that we've been working on. So we'll look at that first. That'll get started. Brought my IT support with me this morning. Here we go.
We're heading west here, Willie? South.
Yeah, going east.
This is east.
Yeah, if he was coming back from the south, you should get her
Mm-hmm.
back on the lake.
You know, the mountains throw me off.
Oh, yeah, depends on what side you're on it too.
Now going west.
And the lake.
Yes, the lake. I didn't realize it was that big. Now we should be going north or west.
Is that west? Which way?
Yes.
It is west.
Yeah, now we're west.
Be slow.
Well, I think there's too many mountains there. It's fairly flat over there. That's what I thought. It's flat.
enjoyed it. We're going to continue to work on that. But just wanted to give everyone a good idea of what the project's going to look like. The current status, currently AGB and its subcontractors, we have 234 employees working on the site. CRRMA has 12 GEC employees and 7 TxDOT employees. AGB and its subcontractors, we worked 264,689 work hours. We had 1 recordable accident at the very first week of January. Utility designs will be completed this month. We're actually finishing up El Paso transmission and level 3. Utility agreements, we still have 1 outstanding agreement with level 3, and
Is that one getting close to completion, Willie?
very close.
Okay.
We're going to have a conference call. We're trying to schedule it this week, early next week, and I think that should wrap it up.
So there's no delays. That pretty much will get wrapped up, and then we're right on schedule, right?
Yes, sir.
Great.
As far as utility relocations, Paso distributions, 1 crossing over 375 is in progress. It'll complete this month. The El Paso transmission crossing over 375 is scheduled for late next month, the 3rd and 4th week of March. On the AT&T, we began the installation of the bores under 10 and 375 last week, and the interduct was going into conduit starting last week. Texas Gas will be scheduled to complete this month. McLeod and level 3 are scheduled to complete this month, and Time Warner Telecom will complete this month as well. As far as construction, the drainage, we continue box culvert and pipe installation on the north and south frontage roads of Loop 375. Pavement, we complete the Alza intersection this week. Drill shaft foundations, 56% complete. Columns, 44% complete. Caps, 22% complete. On the bridge beams, we set our first bridge beams last Saturday, total of 18, so that's 5% just starting. The steel girder beams, the northbound, westbound connector girders are scheduled for 3rd week of March next month. We also began retaining wall installation last week, and then on the change order number 1, the westbound frontage road ramp, we completed the earthwork and asphalt last week, and we're actually scheduled to open the ramp later this week.
That's quick. Good job.
Good weather and good commitment by Dan Williams to do the asphalt.
Good supervision on your part, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Here's some photographs. This was a box installation on the southbound frontage road just south of Rojas and that Valero. Next photo is actually doing the asphalt on the new ramp. There's a photo of the concrete beams that we set on the southbound-westbound connector Saturday night. And then earlier in January, there's a photograph of demolishing those pilasters that were at the Rojas intersection. We actually had to work on top of 375 and also from the ground level at Rojas. Here's a photograph of some of the cap construction. Top one's one of the taller caps in the median, and then the other one's a straddle cap on the southbound westbound connector on the frontage road. We actually lowered the forms Monday night. It's quite an impressive cap. It cantilevers over the frontage road. And then this is an aerial view of just the overall progress of the project. So next up are there any questions before I go to the next video?
What's the current schedule? Are we working, what's the current work schedule out there that we're working, Willie?
Pretty much 6 days a week. We usually have crews working day and night. Not all the crews, but specific tasks, just because of lane closures and different reasons.
Got it.
Next, I'm going to call up Paul Toner. He's one of our engineers. He's actually the individual that created the fly-through video, but we've also created a video that actually progresses the work. So I'm going to let Paul introduce himself and explain the legend to the video.
Like Willie said, my name's Paul Toner. I'm a project engineer for AGB. Next slide. One second is one day, and you see the timeline up in the upper right corner. And when a feature turns green on the screen, appears and turns green, that means we're working on it on that day. And when it turns to the sand color, that means we completed it. So right now we're late October, working on the southbound, westbound columns by southbound 375. And some drilled shafts along there just showing up. Now we've moved on to columns on the eastbound, northbound bridge are starting to be constructed. So now we're about Thanksgiving, so we've got a lot of columns completed on the southbound, westbound side. And we are starting on the northbound, westbound columns at this point. Now you see some caps starting to show up along the southbound, westbound, and the eastbound, northbound bridge. Now we're at Christmas time, so that's what we had done at that point. Now we're starting into this year. See some more columns towards the right side on the southbound, westbound bridge. We're starting to come across 375 on the eastbound, northbound bridge. And some drilled shafts on the northbound frontage road side approaching Rojas. And also on the top left of the screen, you'll see we're working on the southern end of the northbound, westbound bridge on the drilled shafts there as well. And that's where we were as of last Sunday. And you see on the right side, those are the 3 spans of beams that were set on Saturday night.
How are we doing on schedule, Willie?
We're on schedule to deliver the project on time.
Good, which is a substantial completion date of early January.
January 3rd.
Amazing how quickly this has kind of come together.
What percentage of the work is this constitute?
Right now, construction in the field, we're probably close at 42% complete. Yes, sir. I mean, these videos, we're really focusing on the structure, what's visible. There's all the underground stuff. We're not going to get into the weeds on that. But this particular video is impressive because it links actually our P6 schedule to this video. So it actually creates a visual schedule.
And for those of you who've been out there, it's really quite fascinating to see some of these drill shafts being bored and some of these columns being poured with concrete and how they do it, measuring temperatures. It's got to be a certain temperature, not too hot. It's really quite a feat of engineering and science coming together. So is there any other questions for Mr. Kramer? Willie, thank you very much for the update, and good job. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
I'd also like to state, working with AGB has been a delight. They have communicated well to us. They've worked well with us. They've been a good partner, and they've put the project first on a number of items, such as this access that was just recently built. So, Willie, we appreciate you and Ed and the entire team, Kevin, for all your efforts here. Thank you. Item 5, presentation and status report on the Border Highway West Extension Project by the Texas Department of Transportation. Mr. Calvo, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Eduardo Calvo with TxDOT here in El Paso. We're going to give you a very brief presentation on the Border Highway West. Many of you have already seen this presentation. This pretty much summarizes what we've done to date. As you all know, and you've probably heard us say this several times, the Border Highway West is one of the most important projects for this region from a mobility perspective in terms of completing the loop as well as providing an alternate route to I-10. It's been in the books for years. It hasn't been implemented because it's a very challenging project, all sorts of complications, and also the cost is pretty high, but we're very, very confident that we're on the right track, and of course working with the RMA to make it happen in the future. So this presentation pretty much is an update on where we are in terms of the environmental impact statement process. This is the environmental document that is being prepared for the project.
And this is a state environmental as opposed to...
Exactly, right. I'll get into those. There's a lot of information in this presentation, but I'm just going to try to jump to the highlights. Again, as part of the environmental impact statement process, there's a lead agency, which in this case is TxDOT, because as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, this is a state environmental impact statement as opposed to a federal environmental impact statement. So TxDOT is the lead agency, and there's a bunch of other agencies that are either cooperating, participating, and so on. Well, this is just a list of all the agencies that have agreed to participate in the process. A little bit of the history, as I said before, we've been looking at this project. When I say we, all of us that have lived in this region for years, looking at this project in several studies and phases. This map, I think, is very important because it does show why this project is so important. You know, the strategic importance of the project in terms of providing mobility and transportation to the region. You see there in red Loop 375, which has been pretty much worked on for many years. And what you see in the yellow ellipse there, that's pretty much the study area for Border Highway West. That's sort of like one of the missing portions of Loop 375 that we need to build. There's information about the timeline. I don't want to get into a lot of the details. Again, the serious effort on this project started in 2007 when we initiated the EIS. At the time, it was a federal EIS in 2007. There's a number of public meetings that we conducted at the time. Fast forward to 2008 when the CMP was adopted by the partners in this region, the TxDOT, the RMA, the City of El Paso, the MPO. And this project became part of the CMP. As you can see in this slide, the blue projects, which are the toll projects that are elements of the Comprehensive Mobility Plan. Moving forward with the timeline, there's recent developments that have affected and give us at the same time opportunities for this project. And in 2009, the dealings with ASARCO, and we're working with the trustee on one of the possibilities, one of the potential alignments that we're looking at, and I'll get into that later on. Again, the project has been included in the MPO's long-range transportation plan. And if you see there in the box for 2011, part of the significance here is the decision to break up the project. Originally, we were looking at this project as a single one that covered Border Highway West. It also included what was known before as a Schuster extension. We're calling it now the Schuster Connection, which is a connection from the current US 85 Paisano Drive to Schuster Avenue that would provide an additional connection to UTEP and to the hospitals in that area. Again, this is some of the opportunities that ASARCO is providing us. This map gives you a better idea of what I was talking about when we decided to separate these projects. This map shows you we're starting on the western termini of the project at Mesa. What you see there in light blue is what we call the I-10 CD lanes, the collector distributor lanes. That project remains federal because it's on the interstate, so that has to be federalized. But we're looking at it, we're considering it as a separate project. Then what you see there in light purple, starting at Racetrack, that is a western limit of the Border Highway West project. And it moves eastbound or in the direction of downtown. There you see getting very close to I-10. And then as we move forward closer again to the downtown El Paso, you see the purple that continues all the way to approximately Santa Fe Street. Again, what you see in purple is the new corridor that we're looking at under the Border Highway West project. This is under a state EIS process. In green, what you see in this map is the Schuster project, which we're presenting to the Texas Transportation Commission this month to be added to the state highway system. So it's going to be, hopefully it'll be designated by the commission as a state facility, and the number that was given right now is Spur 73. So you're going to start hearing that number very, very soon. That Spur 73 project, again, was separated. We're looking at it as a separate project under a state environmental document as well, as a state process. And we're hoping to enter into an agreement with the RMA so that the RMA can design it for us, and we can get into construction very, very soon. So hopefully we'll bring that to you soon. Let me move forward with the alternatives. So looking back at Border Highway West, what you see in this map in green, again, is a study area for Border Highway West. Again, the limits closer to I-10 on the west side at Racetrack Avenue, and on the eastern side it ends at Park Street. That is the study area. And this is really the most important part of where we are right now. These are the potential alignments, what we call the reasonable alternatives that have been identified so far. And it's pretty much, if you look at this map on the right, you see that there's two potential alignments closer to downtown. Let's say if we start at Park Street and downtown started and moving westbound, there's one alternative that goes close to the border, hugging the river, and another alternative that would go a little bit closer to the to the community of Chihuahuita. And then those two alternatives get together at the pinch point of the corridor, and then there's really one alignment that continues westbound, and then you see two alternatives that open up, one that follows very close to the river, pretty much following the alignment of the existing Paisano Drive, and the other alternative that would go through the Azarco properties, very close to I-10. Again, as we mentioned before, with all the stuff happening with Azarco, that's one opportunity that opens up for us in terms of considering it a potential alignment. So these four alternatives are the ones that were presented to the public and to the agencies in two public meetings that we held in early December 7th and 8th of last year. And as part of the process, we'll present them. We received comments from the general public and from the agencies, and those, we're evaluating all of those comments and incorporating them into the process. So where we are now is that we are continuing the analysis of these alternatives, and the next step very soon, hopefully, is for us to present a preferred alternative that again will be evaluated and will be presented to the partners, to the agencies, and to the general public, and that alternative will be analyzed further for all of the environmental impacts.
Mr. Caulfield, do we have a timeline? Is that 45 days out? Is that 2 months? What is the timeline for, I guess, TxDOT narrowing down what the preferred alternatives are looking to be?
We're looking in the time frame of 45 to 60 days, more or less. Okay. It all depends on the coordination that we have with other agencies as well. But I should say that the schedule for this EIS is a very aggressive schedule. Usually EIS, environmental impact statements, take 3 to 4 years, 5 years, depending on how complicated the analysis is. But we're shooting to get an environmental approval sometime in the summer of 2013. So this is a very, very fast and a very aggressive schedule. We're very optimistic right now that we'll be able to meet that schedule. Again, this is just general information that we covered. Depending on which of the alignments is selected, you see a pretty wide variation in the estimated cost. I mean, it's not cheap, but absolutely it's one of the most challenging and costly projects that we have here, but it's a pretty wide range, 300 to 600 million that we're looking at right now. And obviously, as we select the preferred alternative, we start doing more engineering and more, and we'll be obviously refining the cost estimate.
Is this for the collector, distributor, Schuster, and this, or is
No,
this?
this is only for Border Highway West.
Okay.
One important thing that I think I had not mentioned is that all of the alternatives that we're looking at right now would be tolled. Which means that the new capacity, in other words, the new lanes that are built will be tolled. At the same time, the existing facility, the existing lanes, for example, what exists on Paisano right now, which are non-tolled, those would remain non-tolled. So it's only the new capacity that would be considered a toll facility.
Mr. Calvo, have you done a feasibility as a toll viable?
Well, as we're looking at different scenarios, because depending on the alternative and depending on the connections and all that, the traffic varies. But we are confident that the toll revenue that this project will generate will be interesting.
So the tolls are going to cover 100% of this project?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean there's very few projects in highway projects that are 100% toll viable. And again, some of the constraints that we have in this project, as I mentioned before, this project has everything. Historic properties, the Chihuahuita neighborhood, which is considered historical. Old Fort Bliss also comes into play. We've got the American and Franklin Canal systems. The Asarca property is, well-known challenges there. Being so close to the border, it's interesting now that we're coordinating also with Border Patrol and some of the concerns that they have raised, obviously in their line of business. It's amazing. I mean, some of the things that we learn about that, and of course, any design has to be very sensitive to their requirements for safety and all that. Water resources, again, being so close to the river, there's going to be a lot of very close coordination with the International Boundary and Water Commission, IBWC. Either way, we're going to be probably affecting the floodplain of the river, so that has all sorts of engineering and regulatory implications. Again, the railroads, we're going to be coordinating with them, with both Union Pacific and BNSF. And again, aesthetics, it's more than a constraint, it's really an opportunity to make this project really special. So getting back at the schedule, there's a lot of coordination that we're going to be having with agencies and stakeholders and the general public. The next steps, once we identify the preferred alternative and do some of the analysis, the draft environmental impact statement, as you see here, we're shooting for August to have that document ready and to begin the coordination with all the agencies, a formal review of the document, and have as you see there, the record of decision, which is the name of the actual approval or the decision for the environmental impact statement. It says goal is early 2013. I think it's more like in the spring, summer of 2013. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very ambitious. Got all that done between now and next year.
So far, so good.
Any questions? What an amazing project. I mean, truly transformational. I've heard this piece called the Keystone Project because it kind of unlocks the entire system and frees our dependence from strictly using I-10, gives us alternative routes. Really, TxDOT has to be commended on really coming up with an amazing concept to really improve mobility in this region. So, Mr. Caldwell, thank you for
Thank you very
all
much,
your
and we
work.
look forward to working with the RMA in the future to get this project done.
We're delighted to assist in any capacity that we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, discussion and action on the election of CRRMA officers, A, Vice Chair, B, Treasurer, C, Secretary, and D, Alternate Secretary. Mr. Tejas?
Raymond Theus, Executive Director of the Camino Real RMA. As you know, and as has been provided in the backup, the bylaws for the RMA require that an election of the officers occur each February of each year. So this item is on for your action.
All right. Can you, Mr. Adame is our current Vice Chair. Mr. Marcus is our current Treasurer. I believe Ms. Melendez is our Secretary, and Dr. Payan is our Alternate Secretary. Are there any changes proposed to that particular slate of officers?
You should say, does anybody want to step up to the plate?
Does anybody want some additional responsibilities? If not, is there a motion to nominate the current slate of officers for the coming year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you for your continued service to the RMA. Item 7, discussion and action on a board resolutions authorizing the executive director to execute the following instruments as they relate to Loop 375 at FM 659 Zaragoza Direct Connector Project. A project development agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation. B, a state infrastructure bank loan agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation in an amount not to exceed $20 million. And C, work authorization number 8 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant. Mr. Tejas?
Okay, so let's begin. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and as you'll note, there's been a lot of activity over the last few days, and including this morning. So we'll go through this in any level of detail that you're interested in. The first sheet I want to point out, and we'll come back to this periodically, is a handout that I just provided to you, and it's double-sided, and it has various tables on it. It really identifies the financing approach for the Zaragoza Direct Connector Project, which is item number 7 that we're discussing now, as well as the Trans Mountain Northeast Project, which will be next, item number 8. So we'll come back and forth to this project as we go through this. We'll come back and forth to this document as we go through this project. So as the chair mentioned, item 7 deals with 3 documents related to the Zaragoza project: a project development agreement, or a PDA, a state infrastructure bank loan, a SIB loan, and also the work authorization for the GEC. As a reminder, and to take a step back in time, through the Comprehensive Mobility Plan, the RMA agreed to take on various responsibilities related to various projects within the Comprehensive Mobility Plan. And through various iterations of the Comprehensive Mobility Plan, in the end, the RMA is now tasked with providing a portion of the financing necessary for the completion of not only Zaragoza, but also the Trans Mountain Northeast project. So what you see before you in item number 7 in the items A and B are the documents that put that financing into place. So item A then, again, is the project development agreement. And as a general rule, a project development agreement with TxDOT is essentially the instrument that an entity will enter into when it looks to make improvements on the state's highway system. So that's what you see before you as item A. And actually, if we can go back to this summary sheet, we'll talk a little bit about the specifics of Zaragoza. So on one page, on the front page, you'll see the Zaragoza details. The tables on the left side we'll disregard for now. That was the original approach, and to go back in time, if you remember, the original project budget was $32 million for the Zaragoza Direct Connector. The original plan was that the RMA would develop the design and construction of the project, and all of the costs would go against the project budget of $32 million. Well, TxDOT actually took in the design and did the design in-house, and did a number of other activities related to the project, and did not absorb absorb those projects by TxDOT's budget, not the project budget. So that was a great help in reducing the actual project budget for the Zaragoza Direct Connector. So what you see on the right side are the tables that identify the actual project costs that have come in. So if you jump to the second table down, titled Project Costs, you'll see that the construction, the low bid, was awarded to a construction contractor for $24.8 million. And as you know, in our last meeting, we disposed of the proposed pass-through toll agreements for Zaragoza Americas and Trans Mountain Northeast. So you see the closing costs and the interest costs for that pass-through reduced to zero. We have the general engineering consultant expenses of $219,000, and that's under item 7C that we'll move to here in a second. The RMA administrative fees are about $20,000. The attorneys to get us here have been about $40,000. And then I'll mention the additional scope. This was a very recent addition. The City of El Paso, working with Representative Pickett and TxDOT, have agreed to incorporate some additional improvements to the Zaragoza and Montwood intersection and roll it into this project. So we've increased the project budget for this project by an additional $500,000. So you see that bump there. In addition to that, we've built in a 10% contingency just to be extremely safe. So what you see then there is the actual total for the project at $28.086 million. So in terms of the actual financing plan and where the dollars are coming from to pay for that total, you've got the $5 million original Category 2 dollars that TxDOT was bringing to the table. You have the $7 million that was originally proposed to be brought through the pass-through toll program. That's actually still Category 2, and TxDOT is rolling those dollars forward. So TxDOT's responsible for $12 million. The RMA, through item 7B, will provide $16.086 million from a state infrastructure bank loan, which, of course, as you all will recall, is being backed by the City of El Paso's Transportation Reinvestment Zone number 2. So the first disbursement of SID proceeds will be $16.808 million. Now, the intent there is to get us to that $28.086 million. In the event, though, that there are additional change orders or additional modifications along the way that require additional funds to complete the project, then we still have the ability to go back to the original SIB loan amount, which was $20 million, and borrow the remaining $3.9 million to bring forward to make those additional changes if necessary. Now, of course, in such an event, we would be negotiating and working with TxDOT and the City of El Paso to arrive at the correct change order amount and work out those details. So with that in mind, the revised budget is, while it's still $32 million, in truth, if everything works smoothly and we don't have any additional change orders, and relying upon the fact that we've built in a 10% contingency, which is quite high, the true surplus, meaning the leftover funds that from the original $32 million, should be around $3.9 million. So that's what we're looking at doing under item 7A and 7B. Yes, sir.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, if there is a surplus, basically what's going to happen is we're not going to borrow the entire $20 million from the SIB, so as a result, the TRZ won't be repaying so much back on this project. Is that correct, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
You answered my question.
So with that in mind, then, again, item 7A is the project development agreement between the RMA and the Texas Department of Transportation, which allows us, which really outlines the roles and responsibilities of the parties related to the project, and speaks to the financing approach that I've just outlined for you. Item 7B is the actual State Infrastructure Bank loan agreement between the RMA and the State Infrastructure Bank, which actually gives us access to the $20 million.
And I believe the majority of the attorney's fees were basically negotiating that state infrastructure bank loan and drawing those documents up. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And then we use somewhat of the similar template when we move on to the next project. You'll see that going forward.
That's correct.
Did we already provide action authorizing you to execute a PDA previously on this particular project?
Not on this one, not on this one.
We've just done so on the 375 Northeast.
On the Chavez agreement.
Chavez.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, and let me, while we're at it, let's speak about item 7.6. So, 7C, excuse me. As you know, we have a master agreement with our general engineering consultant, and whenever we task them with a particular project, we execute a work authorization with them. What I'm proposing under item 7C is authorizing the executive director to sign off on work authorization number 8 with Atkins, which is our general engineering consultant. And as you'll note from the tables, we have a draft work authorization with them for $219,750, whereby they will be providing oversight services during the term of this construction. And to speak a little bit about their role, I would mention, as the RMA is borrowing the money through the state infrastructure bank loan and is repaying the loan through the revenue generated by the City of El Paso's Transportation Reinvestment Zone, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the City of El Paso to provide updates, to provide oversight, and recommendations over the term of the project. Really, when you boil it down, it becomes a responsibility that the RMA has to be able to tell the City of El Paso that TxDOT has spent all of these funds, and they're all eligible funds, they're all appropriate expenditures, and most importantly, in the event that a change order arises, the general engineering consultant will review and make recommendations to the RMA, and more importantly to the city, so that the city can make a determination as to whether or not they want to incur that additional SIB loan debt and authorize that change order. So there are several roles that the general engineering consultant will provide during this project, and also you'll see the same structure in the Trans Mountain Northeast project as well.
Any questions? These were just completed fairly recently, the SIB loan agreement and some of the other items. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Zaragoza project we believe that it was finalized on Friday. There were some additional revisions that came in over the weekend, and we knocked those out yesterday. So this has been a fun last few days.
So what you see basically is the final result of something we've been working on for quite some time, and as we know, construction is currently in place on that particular project. So if there are no other questions, is there a motion to approve items 7A, B, and C as I read into the record previously?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I just want to, thank you, Raymond, for doing this, and this is very good, and I'm glad that you worked very hard to get all these documents really quickly to us. I just want to make sure that as we learn from projects and move ahead, we can be more specific about the kinds of other necessary documents. These, as I was looking at them yesterday, often read and any other related documents or necessary materials and such things, and all three of them have that sentence, and I do understand the reason for it. I mean, it'd be kind of a pain in the neck to be calling a meeting to, authorize any and every signature, but I assume that eventually we would learn what list of documents you'll be executing, and I just want to make sure with all that's been on the papers and all that we know has happened in El Paso that we're not giving a blanket statement to any necessary and appropriate documents, kind of a blank check, and that over time we kind of list those documents. This is fine for now because I know that we're still kind of learning what documents are
Basically,
necessary, but
we're giving Raymond the ability to execute what was presented today.
Right.
And in item 9 specifically, we gave Raymond some authority to execute some of the documents in regards to Cesar Chavez, and if there's any substantive changes, to bring those forward, which he'll be bringing forward today and reviewing with the board. So Mr. Tejas does an excellent job basically flowing everything through the board to us for our approval.
no, I know. I just feel always very uncomfortable, politically speaking, when you say, and any other necessary documents, it's probably better to make a list of them
I think we all
when possible.
We all all feel uncomfortable with that. And especially Mr. Tejas. So I can tell you, Mr. Tejas does an excellent job of making sure that anything of any slight import is brought to the board, that we have the ability to see it and make decisions.
And for the record, I think we've done a great job. We've been very transparent. It's almost difficult to understand why people don't come and participate and come to our meetings, because I know we've been very transparent and very honest and very open about what we're doing. It's just a cautionary note that if we can list those things in the future, as time goes by and we learn what those documents are, that we'll list them on here as much as possible.
Start requiring some of your students to come in for.
I know. I should give extra credit.
Have some of the younger population in this community going to be impacted by what we're doing, be more participative in.
Something that we have even tried, which is to try to get people here, and we just don't seem to be able to. But that's another issue. Just that. But I have to say, I express my 100% confidence in what you're doing, Ray, and it's a great job.
Mr. Dice, did you want to mention anything?
Well, the only thing that I would mention is that with a situation like this, the reason why it took so long is that this is a very, very unique approach. And it seems like El Paso, and I think that Mr. Calvo will agree with this comment, El Paso is doing, everything that we are doing is new, and it's a different approach. So there really aren't, there's no real way to identify all of them. So that's why we built it in there. But I have made the commitment before, and will continue to do so, that if there are any additional documents, then that I will always bring those back to you immediately after they're signed. And honestly, for my own protection, a lot of times I will hold a document and not sign it. And you'll see something like that on item number 9. Even though I may legally have the authorization to sign it, this is of such import that I think the board needs to review it and be comfortable with it. But your point is well taken, and I definitely understand it.
So sorry for jumping the gun, Dr.
That's great. I think we're doing fine.
I believe we had a motion from Mr. Marcus, and we had a second from, was it?
I made the motion and he seconded.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, discussion and action on board resolutions authorizing the executive director to execute the following instruments as they relate to Loop 375 Northeast Mainline Extension Project. A project development agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation, and B, a state infrastructure bank loan agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation in an amount not to exceed $6 million. So on the second page of the outline that Raymond has provided to us, you're basically going to see Trans Mountain Northeast. You're going to see that we're only looking at a much smaller SIB loan amount compared to what we were looking at, and that's because the basically the bids came in very favorable for this particular project. So, Mr. Tejas, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. Now, this project, this one was a little bit different in that the structure of it is so similar to the Zaragoza project that TxDOT and the RMA agreed at the outset that once we finalize the Zaragoza documents, then we would essentially use those documents as the template, strike Zaragoza's references, and incorporate Trans Mountain Northeast, and do the same with the financial details as well. So the documents that you've reviewed for Zaragoza are identical to Trans Mountain Northeast, with the exception of the replacement of the names and the financial figures. So those are really the differences between the documents. And unfortunately, because Zaragoza wasn't completed until late yesterday, the Trans Mountain documents weren't completed until just this morning, so that's why you don't have them before you, and I apologize for that. But I will mention as well, if any of you are uncomfortable authorizing these because of that delay, it's completely understandable if you'd like to postpone this item. However, I'd like to go through the details with you and make sure that you're comfortable with the project, with the proposed scope, and the financial details. So as the chair mentioned, on the back page of the summary document, you'll see, and again, we're going to focus on the right-hand side, but just touch real briefly on the left-hand side. You look at the original project. The original project budget was $80 million, and again, the approach was that the RMA would was to develop and construct the project through the $80 million. TxDOT, in the end, completed the design work and some other additional services and absorbed those costs, and they didn't come out of the project budget. So what you see in the left-hand column was a revised budget once TxDOT agreed to take on those additional costs. What you see in the right-hand column are the final costs as everything else has been negotiated and come to agreement. So in the second table on the right-hand side, you'll see
the construction low bid that came in at $47.3 million. You have the GEC amount there, you have the attorney amount, the RMA's administrative costs, and these last two rows, I noticed they actually should be reversed. What's happening on this one, in essence, when you see the construction costs, that construction cost includes a contingency from TxDOT. And when you roll all of that together, you see that the Category 2 funds that are available to TxDOT cover that construction cost. So in essence, the original approach for this project was that the City of El Paso was not going to have to incur any debt whatsoever. The Category 2 costs were going to cover all of the project costs. However, through discussions between the City of El Paso and TxDOT, the city, and as you all probably likely know, especially through our own aesthetic project, the city has been pushing heavily to TxDOT to get additional aesthetic improvements to their facilities throughout the city. In the end, what happened on this particular project was the city asked for the incorporation of an artist by the name of Vicky Scurry, who's actually also doing our aesthetic project along I-10, asked her to do some design work for inclusion into the retaining walls and other improvements along the Trans Mountain Northeast project. TxDOT said, we've already let the project, it's too late, it would have to be a change order. In the end, the city said, we'll pay for that change order. So what you see in the last row of the project cost table is a $2.4 million additional aesthetics item. That's what that's for. That includes all of the additional work that's being added to the project at the city's request. Above that, and again, these should have been reversed, is a 10% contingency on that additional aesthetics cost. So what you see then through this structure is that the RMA is now taking out a SIB loan through, and again, we're doing it the same way with an initial disbursement, of $2.895 million, and that is to cover the GEC expenses, the RMA expenses, the additional aesthetics, and the additional aesthetic contingency amount. And in the event there are additional change orders down the road, then you see that additional SIB proceeds, the second disbursement of $3.1 million. I should have mentioned at the outset also, when we all realized that TxDOT's work and the savings were going to result in no need for a state infrastructure bank loan, at the time, I should say, we went first and asked for $20 million from the SIB loan. That was the original finance approach. When we realized that there would be zero needed from the SIB loan, we all agreed that we better go ahead and complete the process for an amount not to exceed $6 million, just in case we actually needed some additional funds. So the $6 million is what you see there when you add up the two SIB amounts. And I apologize, I'm doing this a little bit out of order. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. So the gist of this is then the Category 2 funds from which TxDOT will pull to actually do the construction of the original project is a $47 million. Added to that are the aesthetic improvements that the city has added at $2.895 million, including the GEC, the RMA admin costs, and related expenses. And then you've got the second SIB loan amount in the event that we need it for change orders and that sort of thing, in the amount of $3.1 million. So the total project cost on this one, in the end, amounts to $53.3 million, which leaves a surplus of $26.6 million from the original $80 million project. Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, on this 2.895, which is the 243 and the $2 million, the city is going to cover that cost? Did I understand correctly? For the aesthetics?
Yes, sir. So essentially what we're doing is the RMA through item 8B has the state infrastructure bank loan. The RMA is actually providing that $2.8 million up front to TxDOT to complete the project and complete the aesthetic improvements. And then the city's transportation reinvestment zone number 3 will actually be used to pay down that particular debt. In addition to that, that second disbursement of 3.1 is available to TxDOT in the event that a change order is necessary. And that's where, again, you see the GEC come into play. They will review any change orders. They'll do oversight over the entire construction of the project and make sure that all the expenses are appropriate and that sort of thing. And then they will ultimately make the recommendation for or against the proposed change order. Incidentally, I should have mentioned on both Zaragoza and Trans Mountain, the GEC, one of their additional main tasks will be to provide reporting to not only the RMA, but the city of El Paso in terms of how the project is proceeding, how the expenditures have been made, and making sure that everything is proceeding appropriately.
And at the end of the day, the city will decide, if that's something that they want to move forward with the additional change order, the city will decide, since these are TRZ dollars, if there's additional SID proceeds, if they're going to be spent and how.
Then two more. That 6 million on the SIB, that is if we need to, correct? We're not going to, we've applied for the 6, but we're not going to draw them unless we need them?
Actually, we are. That's where the 2.8 is coming from in the first. So the 6 is the total not to exceed amount. The first draw that we will absolutely take is the 2.8 to cover the aesthetics and the other related costs. And then the remaining 3.1 is available if we need it for additional change orders.
Okay, so the 3 is tentative, and if we do need both, that's where the TERS comes in, to cover those costs, correct?
Yes, sir.
And-
Well,
and
yes, sir.
The contingency of 247,000 specifically is only for the aesthetics, so there could be some additional funds left over from the contingency that could be utilized and, as well, so.
Absolutely.
And then back to the chair, what are we doing with the surplus?
The surplus on this one, as mentioned, it means that we borrow less money, so the city pays less.
We're originally looking at $20 million worth of TRZ or SIB loan, as well as, I believe, a pass-through toll agreement. So basically, we're only looking at a maximum of $6 million through the SIB loan that the TRZ potentially would have to repay.
And any additional remaining funds through Category 2 or otherwise, those are allocated to the region, so those will go through the MPO process.
It won't really be a surplus, because it's just something we will need to draw on. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's not like we're going to have a bunch of money left over. We're just not going to borrow that much more.
That's true for the most part, but there appear to be additional funds available from the original Category 2 dollars that were available, but those go through the MPO process for reallocation.
So those don't come to the RMA.
Okay.
Right. In other words, there's not an RMA bucket with a certain amount that will be left over that we could use elsewhere, unfortunately.
Sure. Can we change that?
I've been working on that.
So basically, the facts are, as you see before you, they were basically put together and completed here relatively quickly. If there is some desire to push this to the next board meeting, we can certainly do so. I can tell you I'm completely comfortable with executing, as I stated, the project development agreement in this regard, as well as the SIB loan. All the details have been laid out here.
If I could, I'll also mention, we don't have a work authorization for the general engineering consultant ready for today's meeting, because in order to develop a scope for their work, they needed to understand the scope of the aesthetic improvement. And of course, that wasn't ironed out until this morning. So we will have that for you at the very next meeting.
So what do you need from us today?
Approval.
If the board is comfortable, we take a motion on item 8A and 8B that I read into the record earlier.
And that would allow me to execute the project development agreement with TxDOT and also the state infrastructure bank loan with the SIB.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, discussion and action on board resolutions authorizing executive director to execute the following instruments as they relate to the development of Loop 375 Cesar Chavez Border Highway Managed Lanes project. A, an amendment to that amended and restated financial assistance agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation. B, project agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation. And C, amended and restated work authorization number 7 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant. And as item A stated, an amendment to the amended and restated. This is something that we've been working on for quite some time. Just for the board, as you recall, we authorized Mr. Tejas to execute the project development agreement in the substantial form that it was back in October. There have been some changes to that, and also, just to remind the board, we have basically extended primacy on this particular project, and Mr. Tejas will go through and kind of detail all that in his comments. So, Mr. Tejas.
Thank you. So as the chair mentioned, these 3 items deal with the Cesar Chavez project. What I've done on this one is also very unique in that, as the chair mentioned back in October, I brought to you a project development agreement, a financial assistance agreement, and also a work authorization. I did that at the time because we thought that we were very close to completing the negotiations and actually being ready to sign those documents. And this goes to Dr. Bayan's point that the intent was to execute them immediately because the project had already begun. So we needed to be on the ground. We needed to start the work related to the tolling improvements and all of the other related activities. So the intent was, I brought you the documents, and then I would come back to you with any revisions to those documents. Well, unfortunately, it took a lot longer to get here than we originally anticipated. In fact, these documents became final this morning at about 8. So this has been an ongoing process. And again, I should mention, this is a very unique scenario where an entity, the RMA in this case, exercises primacy, saying we will construct and develop and own and operate the project, yet TxDOT is actually using the funds to design and construct the project. So it's a very unique situation, which is really has a lot to do with why we've been negotiating this for quite some time. Anyhow, so back to Dr. Payan's point, I'm back to you with the revised documents, and what you have before you is a 2-page memorandum, and that memorandum gives you a little bit of background, and I want to go through this because it's important, and because you have not seen these documents before this morning, I wanted to go through this in detail to make you comfortable with the changes that have been made. What this memorandum does is really outlines the project, then it talks about the changes that have been made, and a little bit of detail, and then also notes on the back page through bullet points the conceptual changes to the original documents that you all approved in October. So I want to go through this in a little bit of detail. In addition to that, what I've added to your backup behind the memo are the actual redlined versions of the financial assistance agreement, so you can see the actual language that we have agreed upon. And then under 9B, you'll see the redline version of the project development agreement, and the red lines actually identify the changes from the version that you saw back in October and the version that we're looking to execute today.
And if you'd like, Mr. Tejas could get up on the Elmo and go through the agreement, through the red lines, or he can give us kind of the brief summary, which he has provided in this 2-page summary here. So it's really up to the board's discretion what they'd like to see. So if you'd like to go through the red line agreement on the Elmo, we can certainly do so today, or we can cover them here. Does anybody have a preference?
I'm comfortable with what we've got here.
Okay. Absolutely. Let me do that then. And obviously, if there's any questions, please stop me, and we can go to the actual language if you're interested in doing it that way. So what you see in that first paragraph is really an explanation about what you all did in October, and the idea, again, was that I would bring back any changes, but we really didn't anticipate any at that time. Unfortunately, we came across several significant changes. So that outlines that. The second paragraph then talks about an overview of the relationship of the parties in this particular project, because this is another unique one. Again, the project is, when you look at Loop 375 from roughly the Zaragoza port of entry over to US 54, those are 4 existing main lanes currently. What the project includes is actually rehabilitating all of those 4 lanes, pushing them out a little bit, and adding 1 managed lane in each direction. The intent of the project is that the 4 main lanes remain free, and the 2 managed lanes, of course, are toll lanes that are eventually operated and managed by the Camino Real RMA. The parties have executed a market valuation agreement. That was done, and that has been approved by the El Paso MPO. And we have executed exercise primacy, I should have said there, for the development of the project. And again, as I mentioned, we intend to operate and maintain the project once it's actually open in about a year and a half.
However, we do have somewhat of a unique ability to take a look to see if the project is indeed feasible and makes money. And so we have the option basically to rescind that primacy after we take a look at just the feasibility of the tolls and the overall operation and maintenance. Is that correct, Mr.
Absolutely, and that's a really good point. And part of what has taken us so long to get here is the fact that we included that option to rescind. So the point is, when you exercise primacy, normally you're taking a project over. You're saying, we are going to do this project. However, we've exercised that primacy with the ability to give the project back to TxDOT if, when we go through the numbers, they don't make sense. Now, the reason we had to do it that way was that this RMA obviously has virtually no revenue stream. We didn't have the funding to do the due diligence that's required to identify or to determine whether or not the project is feasible. So what you see before you under the financial assistance agreement and the project development agreement is actually the RMA getting access to the project fund so we can do that due diligence. So one of the first things we'll be doing is running the numbers, making sure that the project makes sense. If it doesn't, then we'll step back. I will make a recommendation that you all rescind that primacy and give the project back to TxDOT, and then we'll turn over all of the work product developed to date to TxDOT, and they can continue with the project. So that among other unique wrinkles, is really one of the main items that has really slowed the negotiation of this.
And that was very unique and was for the best protection of the RMA in regards to this particular project.
Absolutely.
What's that time frame once we approve this? What's the time frame you get into feasibility?
We have to get everything done before the managed lanes open. So the construction, and I don't know if Mr. Calvo has a better date, but my recollection is about 1.5 years from today. So we've got quite some time.
Again, Eduardo Calvo with TxDOT here in El Paso. The project is moving very fast. So we've got an estimated completion date of sometime in the summer of 2013. So it's moving fast, and there has to be once the due diligence is completed, then there needs to be other action. So we need to start moving on the following steps.
I just have a quick question on that. I mean, I'm glad that TxDOT is willing to take it back and essentially assume a loss if the model doesn't work. But this due diligence, where is the data coming from? How is it going to be worked out? How can we project how many vehicles are actually going to use and pay these tolls so that we can, have the certainty that we'll keep it or give it back? I mean, what's...
Well, let me tell you what we did. As part of the process, as Mr. Tellez described, TxDOT did, we did our own analysis of the whole thing, the engineering, but more importantly, the traffic and revenue analysis. We shared that with Mr. Tellez and the consultants, and that was really the basis when we negotiated the market valuation waiver process. But those are our numbers. What Mr. Tellez described is that, we feel very good about our numbers. We're pretty confident on those, but the RMA has to do its own due diligence. So that's what needs to be done. Hopefully, the numbers will be very close, and I'm confident that they will be. They'll be very close, and then we can agree on moving forward.
But your numbers will not be provided to the RMA. We have to do our own homework and look at our own projections, right?
Actually, the numbers were provided.
Right.
Okay, so now I'm curious about whether we decide to give it back, and then over time, as the east side keeps growing and it becomes a good alternate route to I-10, then it becomes actually feasible after it opens. Are we thinking of all these things?
Yes, absolutely. And part of the evaluation includes that long-term look into the future.
Which also, sorry, Mr. Tellez, includes the Southern Relief Route. When we're looking at these additional tolled facilities and all of a sudden having a system as opposed to just 9 miles of two managed lanes that really end and don't continue either up to I-10 or west through the Southern Relief Route, all of a sudden those are dynamics that need to be included. And, 2 years ago, we weren't sure about how we're going to get the Southern Relief moving forward. It appears that is now got a full head of steam and moving forward, and so it's an important dynamic.
Yeah, exactly, because the presentation that you gave, it may change the equation in the sense that you only have, Zaragoza 375, well, the Zaragoza bridge to 54, but then if you open up this area over here and you actually give people an access all the way out, that may actually change the equation of how people are going to view the route and use it. And it also seems to me that this will become an all-told funnel anyway, because, it depends on one of the choices that you presented, which one is chosen ultimately, but it may give people that choice and it may change the numbers.
But actually, when we do our traffic and revenue studies, we look into the future. We look typically 40, 45 years, 50 years into the future. So the forecasting needs to take into account, what is our best estimate of what facilities will be in place at the time, And at the same time, be forecasting demographic changes, population increases, where physically the population within the region is going to be moving east versus west and all that. So our analysis was performed 2009, I believe. So when the RMA does this analysis in 2012, there may be some differences in the assumptions that were made in terms of forecasting the future growth and all that. But I think the numbers are not going to be exactly the same, but they will be in the ballpark. I think.
What's unique about this project, most toll roads that I understand, is that you've got the toll. First, they need to pay down the debt. Then they pay down the operation and maintenance of the actual toll facility. And at that point, you can either use some of those excess funds or potentially look at reducing the toll. In this particular case, there is no debt on this particular project. I believe the toll just needs to cover the operation and maintenance. So it's kind of a unique piece. And so if we can get that done, tie it into a system, this is really an opportunity for us to utilize that funding and lever it to do other projects that are needed in this region. So.
No, I think it's very generous of TxDOT to do that and say, we can even take it back if you don't think it's feasible. But yeah, I mean, I'll be looking forward to looking at the numbers of this due diligence process.
Any more questions, Mr. Caldwell?
No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Tejas?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Calvo. So as we talk about the project budget on this particular project is $80.25 million. And let me see if there's some additional highlights here. So in terms of the financial details of this particular project, because the RMA has exercised primacy, on the books, the RMA is actually responsible for the project. However, in fact, the way that we are structuring this, TxDOT is actually completing the design and construction, so they require access to the majority of the funds. So in essence, what happens here is that on the books, the RMA is the responsible party, but TxDOT actually retains and controls the use of those funds. And part of, honestly, what took us so long to get here was this idea that they had the access to all of the funds. We had no access to review those funds, yet we had all of the responsibility for those funds as well. So what you will see when we go through the bullet points is a shift to allow us to audit those numbers, to get comfortable with those numbers, and identify problems if we come across them. So that was really one of the issues that we were stuck on for quite some time. In this structure, though, the RMA will actually have access to two pots of money from the $80.25 million total project cost. The first pot is $2.4 million, which will give us the services of our general engineering consultant to get us through the oversight of the construction and to begin putting together the procurement services necessary to bring on an entity that will actually design and construct the tolling improvements. So what TxDOT is doing is putting in the roadway, and we will come in later and put in the tolling improvements that matches the system that the RMA is looking at doing and that sort of thing. So the 2.4 will get us up to procurement. 7.5 million is the second pot of money that the RMA has access to, and that is for the actual design and construction of the tolling improvements for the managed lanes. So through this agreement, the RMA has access to $9.9 million. And lastly, then, we've got the work authorization for $2.27 million for the general engineering consultant. And again, this was approved back in October, as we discussed, and nothing has changed on that document other than I believe there were a couple of typos. So that remains the same. The scope of services remains the same. And that was really, has not been signed. It was put on the shelf while we negotiated the PDA and the financial assistance agreement. So with that as the backdrop, let me touch a little bit on the financial assistance agreement, the actual substantive revisions, and then we'll move into the project development agreement and those substantive agreements. The first one for the financial assistance agreement, we limited the TxDOT expenditures of project funds to what is a defined term of eligible expenses as defined by the construction contract that they've already awarded. In addition to that, they have the ability to spend up to $1.5 million on what are referred to as additional eligible expenses, which covers oversight and implementation of the actual construction contract. One of the concerns with that was the idea that TxDOT is out there constructing the project. Our concern was if they have an amendment or a change to the managed lanes that affects our ability to operate those managed lanes, we need to be a part of that discussion process. So that's really one of the main threads that you'll see through a number of these. The second bullet shows that TxDOT will now has agreed to provide copies of all the invoices to the RMA for review and comment within 10 days. And lastly, I think is one of the more important parts, and you'll see that more in the project development agreement, and that is that the RMA now has the right to audit the TxDOT expenditures to ensure that they were all eligible expenses as defined within the project development agreement. So those were the main revisions to the financial assistance agreement. The project development agreement had a number of their own revisions. First is clarifying the opening date, as mentioned by Ms. Melendez. The opening date really becomes when the managed lanes are open. The RMA is also authorized to review the invoices with the ability to engage an auditor, as we discussed. The RMA retains the approval authority of any design changes, and again, that's, as I mentioned, the point of that is we need to make sure that we understand what the managed lanes will look like in the end, because we will actually be operating, maintaining those. TxDOT also provides a limited warranty for project improvements, as well as an assignment of errors and omissions coverage related to the project plans and specifications. This is important because over the life of the managed lanes, we're not involved in the construction of those managed lanes. So we need to ensure that we have the warranty coverages and the errors and omission coverage. So in the event that there's a problem with those managed lanes, the RMA, as the owner and operator of those facilities, can actually go back to the developer and say, you need to fix this, that, or the other. That was an important item as well. We removed also Federal Highway Administration Project Oversight Agreement. That was an unnecessary holdover from the template that we believe TxDOT used for the project agreement. We clarified that the RMA will transfer all of its work product to TxDOT, and there's a typo there, I see, in the event that the RMA rescinds its exercise of primacy. So the point there is, if the RMA in the end, through its due diligence process, determines that it's not in the best interest of the RMA to pursue the project, everything that we've done, all of the dollars that we spent to date, all of that work product will then be shifted over to TxDOT as the ultimate owner of that project. And the last two items are revisions to the record keeping and right of entry provisions to make those reciprocal. So really, those bullet points are the conceptual revisions to the document that you all have reviewed and approved back in November. Now, as I mentioned again, in the backup for items 9A and 9B show the actual red line revisions to the document. We can go through those in any level of detail if you're interested. But subject to your questions, that's really the gist of the project here.
So really, there's really no action on our part unless you'd like to review these documents for 30 days prior to giving Raymond the ability to sign this, or we can give Raymond the ability to sign, as we've already done so, without any action based on kind of his review today.
And really, if you're interested in doing that, I think that I would recommend that there be a motion to reaffirm the resolutions that were approved on October 12th related to this project, and that would provide me with a document that I could rely on, saying yes, absolutely, there were revisions. However, here's the paper trail showing my authority to sign it.
And that's only on item A, B. I believe we will need a motion on item C, correct? Is that the amended and restated work authorization?
No, sir. That was done on October 12th as well, so it would be for all three.
Move that we reaffirm.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, discussion and action on the Executive Director's Report. A, update on the general engineering consultants' use of local resources. B, update on fiscal year 11 annual audit. And C, 2012 TxDOT Transportation Forum, San Antonio, Texas. Mr. Tejas.
This will be very brief. Item A, we have Pete Jacobs with us. As you know, at the last board meeting, the board directed our general engineering consultant to develop an outreach plan and approach to reach out to the local resources, identify those, and see where we could plug those into our general engineering consultant team. So we have Mr. Jacobs here for a brief update.
For the record, Pete Jacobs, GEC, for the RMA. What we're doing now is we're going to work with the Chamber of Commerce, schedule a job fair situation, have all the engineers, local engineers, come on through the Chamber of Commerce and coordinate all this, all the different type of activities that are offered locally. it seemed to us that would be the best way to approach this whole situation. That way we get everybody in one area and we can talk and do a presentation, allow them to see what type of opportunities the RMA has, and then at the same time understand what is being offered and what is local. So we're in that process. But one other thing I did want to bring up is we are in the process right now of bringing on a local firm to help us with the design that we've just picked up. So we're already starting to expand on our team.
That's which design is that, Pete?
That is going to be for the north to west direct connector on the Medicus interchange.
Okay.
We've brought on this CQC, which is a local geotechnical firm.
What's the name of the firm again?
CQC.
I believe Mr. Calvo stated that we may be looking at handling the design on the Schuster extension as well, so.
There have been a couple other, it's been an exciting 2 weeks since our last meeting. We've been surprised by several opportunities that TxDOT is allowing us to do and coordinate with them. So our expectations have quadrupled in just the last 2 weeks. Really been a surprise to us.
Pete, when is the date for the vendor fair at?
We haven't gotten that resolved yet, but we are working on getting that done within the next month.
So you'll have this done sometime end of February, beginning of March?
We will have it done by the next meeting. I guarantee it.
So prior to the next board meeting, we'll have this completed?
Yes, sir, we will.
I think also prior to the next board meeting, I think we're going to have a list of expenditures that the RMA has expended and how much of that has, through the GEC, and how much of that has gone through to local firms. Is that correct?
That is exactly. Yes, sir.
Right.
We will have that. That'll be our first quarterly. Our first 6 month one, and we'll be doing it for 6 months from there on out.
That'll be basically everything from the inception of the RMA to date, and then from there forward, we will do 6-month updates to that document. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right, and you'll present those here at the board meeting, right?
Yes, sir. I'll be the lucky one.
Good.
What a lucky guy.
So this is part of, the extension of the board meeting we had last time and addressing some of the concerns from the local engineering community. So I very much appreciate actively going out and, providing that outreach to the local engineering community. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what develops from there and with some of these new projects that TxDOT is bringing to the table and other projects that appear to be on the horizon. I'm excited about what's happening and what we're doing going forward.
A lot of things are happening very, very fast. That is going to be our biggest issue, is because they are happening so fast. On the Americas, I do want to bring up this, over 70% of that money is staying locally.
Okay. We'll see that next board meeting.
Yes, sir. That'll be for the full thing.
Got it. Is there any other questions for Mr. Jacobs?
Just one, if this vendor fair takes place prior to our next meeting, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you let us know when so that?
Absolutely. You'll be the
we'll
first.
be aware?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good. Good. Mr. Jacobs, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your help.
Item B is the fiscal year annual audit. Unfortunately, we got slightly delayed, so we don't have that ready for you all. We intend to have the Finance Committee meet within the coming weeks and have the actual report ready for acceptance at the next meeting. That's our goal. And lastly, item C, 2012 TxDOT Transportation Forum. This year's forum is being held in San Antonio, Texas, and I will be attending along with the chair and the vice chair, and we will brief you upon our return.
Real quickly, you've already done the audit, right? All you need is compilation.
Yes, sir. In fact, they completed the single audit portion, the single audit portion of the overall audit yesterday, and they were out with Mr. Jacobs at the Americas Interchange Project Office. And I believe there's just a couple of remaining items left to complete, and we'll have that done soon.
That'll go to the Finance Committee, then it'll come back to us, right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Tejas, thank you for doing a very good job clarifying a number of very complicated issues that we were able to put together, and thank you for all your work to get these things completed as timely as we did get them done. So,
Thank you.
on behalf of the board, thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
With that, was there a
Move
motion
to
adjourn?
approve, yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned at 10:24 on February 8th, 2012.
Good deal.